this show called?
This is Makeup with Our Memories.
Yes. Good job remembering.
Yes. And you are Heather.
And you are Amelia Nose.
Amelia Nose with the itch.
Yeah.
And
Why are we here today?
today...
Why are we here today?
Today we're going to talk about nose itches.
Ooh, fascinating.
No, today we're going to talk about therapy.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Something a little bit more serious than nose itches. Yeah, so we went to therapy.
We did. About 4 months into our relationship with this new dynamic of Amelia Rose. Okay, sorry.
Amelia Nose, yep.
Recenter.
Recentering. Yeah, so it was about 4 months in, right? And I think we kind of hit a wall.
Yeah.
I guess is a good way of putting it, right? I don't know, we were having some struggles, I think, with trying to find a balance and figure out how to be comfortable and, right? Like, did you add anything to that?
Yeah, I think like the 4 month mark for me was we had a really tough conversation where there's a lot of guilt on your side. This is not fair. You don't deserve this. I think just kind of feeling like a piece of poo, honestly. Just not feeling too good about yourself, and I wanted to reassure you, and it just got to a point that in that conversation it was just heartbreaking, and I finally said, the way I see it is that we have blind spots, and I acknowledge I don't know what my blind spots regarding you are, and I imagine that there are blind spots about me that you don't see, and I don't know how to identify or articulate, so both ways. And with that, I'm thinking we need professional help, because this can't go on where you have tough conversations and you have feelings of not feeling worth it, not feeling good about yourself, feeling guilty about your cis wife or girlfriend. It just wasn't a sustainable place for us as individuals, as a couple, and I was like, we need to take that next step to make sure that our marriage is going to stay strong, and to help us through this. How were you initially feeling with regard to therapy?
I was initially kind of apprehensive about therapy.
Yeah. And for a couple reasons. Do you know, how would you articulate what reasons that made you apprehensive?
Well, I think at that point we were still very much in the, like, trying to keep control of the information stage, in terms of, like, who knows about me, right?
Oh, so like your one apprehension of, and correct me, but do you mean like I was worried that maybe I would out you to people who don't know about you, or like, follow that thought?
No, I'm talking about, like, in terms of when we were, because we didn't immediately know, like, oh, this is the therapist we're going to use, right? But, like, we knew.
Oh.
We had a couple different options for therapy, and we could go through work,
military,
through the military insurance, right? But then there's the concern of, like, well, how much do you have to divulge in order to get access to the therapy and things like that? Because I don't have a lot of familiarity with the civilian world healthcare, but in the military world, like, you gotta divulge a lot more information to get access to specialty care. You have to divulge that information to people who don't necessarily the ones that you should have to divulge that information to, but it's just the way the system works until they eventually change it. They're working on it, but
also, I mean, having insurance through the military is helpful. It it lessens the burden financially. Lessens, not erases.
Yeah.
But lessens significantly enough to want to utilize that source of help, medical help. But when you have the concern of this delicate conversation being outed in your nature of work, that was something that we had to be conscious of. I won't speak for you, but I guess in my experience with people, oftentimes therapy is like a no go, not gonna go to that, and oftentimes it's biological men who don't want to go. I was learning the differences in gender and how that mothers raise their daughters to be more capable of identifying emotions and being more accepted as girls to express them, and that is not as traditionally the case for men, biological men, to do as well. And so from my limited experience of therapy and whether to accept it or not, is oftentimes biological men who are resistant. I don't have feelings that are, I don't need to deal with this, it's not a problem, blah, blah, blah. Not about whether you have a problem or not, it's whether you have something that you don't understand, that maybe you need a little bit more insight, or maybe you need a space to talk about it, to maybe understand it more, and to help the people around you understand what you're going through in a productive way, without shouting or without additional confusion that's unnecessary. But unfortunately, oftentimes in our society, biological men are more resistant to therapy. And I wondered if that was true for you, and I guess I will ask, was that true for you?
Yeah, I mean, as sort of not as in tune with my emotions at that point. Right? I've gotten a lot better since then.
Right?
A
lot better, yes.
But yeah, at that time I was still like learning how to be a whole, complete person. And I think that the therapy actually was a big tool in helping me learn how to be a whole, complete person.
Absolutely.
So eventually, yes, I did relent. And
well, do you remember what I said that kind of switched our gears into go mode?
I will let you quote yourself.
Okay, or paraphrase. I said, well, basically, my take on everything is our relationship right now is a priority for me. Our marriage right now is the priority for me. And I don't see how we're going to continue to keep our relationship strong if we're not going through this, if we don't go through therapy to identify our blind spots. So it's a top priority. We got to make this happen. And I could see it in your face, kind of like, all right, she's right.
Checkmate.
Kind of. And I didn't mean it in like a mean way, but more of like, this is not just to benefit me, this is to benefit us. This, if anything, it's to benefit you even more than me, because you have a much more, in my interpretation, you have a lot more unpacking to do, because this has been a part of you for almost your entire life, and you haven't been able to acknowledge it. And so if anything, you need this more than I, but then again, because I'm in this relationship, we need this to help us in an equal manner. So we started doing some research, and I was listening to a podcast. I actually, because of COVID, there are all these podcasts that were promoting, get mental health, because, we're working at home, we're not with a lot of people, there's a lot of isolation, it's not mentally healthy. And so podcast after podcast after podcast would mention better health.
Better help?
Oh, snap.
I think it's better help.
Is it BetterHelp? Or is
I
it?
think it's BetterHelp.
Oh, I thought it was like better health. Like they're going to be in better health through mental support. We'll do our research, or you can. Because
Just go type therapy online, you'll find it.
I mean, it's one or the other, and it really helped us. We found a therapist, and again, as they say, in like just a couple of days, we were able to fine tune what we were looking for. We looked specifically for people who are in the LGBTQ plus community. So I think that was helpful. So that it kind of narrows down the help that we're looking for and the expertise that we're looking for. So we did that. And then I guess what were your thoughts leading up to the first session?
It was definitely, I would say I was definitely like nervous about it, right? Because I think at that point that would be the only other person I had told would be the therapist, right? Because I'd only told you at that point. Like that was like a long time ago now at this point, right?
I know.
Because now it's like, who doesn't know?
Yeah.
That list is much shorter now.
Yeah, which is wonderful. And I think therapy had a big part in that, in making us both comfortable to share this new dynamic in our marriage.
Yeah. So I think mostly it was just nerves of having to actually face to face talk to somebody else about this thing that I was still trying to figure out for myself. What about you?
I was nervous that you're gonna hate it. I thought that you were gonna be like, "This is dumb. I'm not gonna do this again." And I thought if you thought this was dumb and it's not gonna work, then I was out of cards because I didn't know what else I could do to help. So I was worried that you wouldn't like it and that it wouldn't go well. And it could have. There could be a situation where maybe we hadn't met the right therapist, but if we hadn't met the right therapist at the first time and then you're like, I'm done, I quit, then that would be really unfortunate. So I was just, the long and the short of it was I was concerned that you wouldn't like it, you wouldn't want to do it again, and we wouldn't benefit, and we wouldn't continue to grow in our marriage with this new dynamic. And then what ended up happening was at the end of the session, do you remember what you felt? We went on a walk after our first meeting.
I don't remember. So long ago now.
So we went on a walk, and it was a beautiful day, and I think you were kind of a little bit on cloud nine, like a big. You looked as though you had a big weight off your chest, off your body, off your shoulders. And interestingly enough, I felt kind of a little bit the reverse.
Oh, why?
Because of the content of the meeting, it meant I had. Before the meeting, I was able to say, like, oh, we'll just, Amelia can be on the weekends. I'm being a very understanding wife. We'll just have Amelia on the weekends, and it's great. And then I can also just have my husband during the week. Because I had made a lot of progress in those first 4 months, but I was still not anywhere near, like, ready for like a full-blown transition if you discovered in months or years from now that you wanted that, and that hadn't been put on the table yet at all. But I just wasn't there. I was 100% there for the amount that we were doing, but I wasn't ready for like 100% integration. And let's see if I remember. There's something interestingly enough, you want to do a podcast. I think that was also a catalyst. And I was like, okay, how more accepting can I be? Like, I'm saying, yes, I love you, and I want to stay with you. I want, yay, you want to stay with me. I'm helping you with makeup. I'm helping you dress. I'm doing your measurements. I feel like I'm going above and beyond. And then it was more kind of like, okay, now let's do a podcast. And I was like, huh? Eh? Like, so I wasn't ready to share everything with everyone. And I was like, why can't we just be like most, dual gender couples? There are so many. But people who have their lives, and it didn't have to be so public. And I think that was another thing of like, I feel pushed. I'm trying. It's been 120 days that I've known about this. And that was also a catalyst for therapy. But when we had our first day in therapy, the homework kind of that we got was, okay, let's have more integration. Let's have more Amelia time. And I was like, more Amelia time?
Oh, man.
I mean, I'm not ready. And for cis girlfriends and cis wives, I'm being this frank because I want you to feel validated and not feel like, I'm as in you, so that you don't feel like, I'm just being the bad wife. I'm being the unaccepting girlfriend. I'm not being flexible. You are, and you're bending over backwards as much as you humanly can at this point. And you need to keep that in mind to not be super pushed when they're in the pink fog and up in the air and like, yay, I have freedom, and now I'm gonna run with that freedom. Like, there's a balance. And that balance doesn't have to be 50-50 like day one or day 120. I wasn't ready for that. And maybe you will, but I doubt it because it's not very common in society yet. So it's probably going to take you a minute. So anyway, I'm blabbering on. So the therapist was saying more integration. And that was hard for me because it made me realize that I could be doing more. I should be maybe doing more. And the feeling that I'm not doing enough when I feel like I'm doing a ton was a blow. I think a blow to the ego, a blow to the emotions, and anytime I think people are not feeling like they're doing enough, it's really hard. And especially when it's like in response to your person, you want to do everything for your person and make your person happy. And then when you're getting kind of a reality check from an outsider perspective who is more, who's seen more of this dynamic in couples than we have, it's hard. Yep. So our first session, it was hard. And then what would you say of the following sessions?
I'm trying to remember what happened at the next. I think the next we did like individual sessions, right?
I think, yeah. It was together, individual, together.
Yeah.
So what happened with yours?
It was so long ago. I think it really was like it was kind of just like asking a lot of, like questions just about like, how do you see yourself and what does it mean to you, and that kind of stuff, I guess. Yeah. Having a hard time remembering now.
Yeah, something like, I would imagine the therapist would say like, well, how long has this been going on, and what have you done like manifested in your younger years that made you. Yeah,
but there was no like the stereotypical like questions of like, so when you were 5, did your mother blah blah blah, there wasn't none of that, like
not like leading questions.
No leading questions. Yeah, there wasn't like leading questions. It was more just like, how do you feel about this, and what do you think that this means, and all of that. Those were the kinds of questions that I got.
So it's really just somebody asking questions so that you can discover more for yourself. It was never like them bringing, or maybe they did sometimes, to bring new. They didn't bring like new information.
Yeah.
Or like plant little seeds for you.
No, yeah, there wasn't like, I wouldn't say that she like planted seeds.
It was just kind of like gaining information, or like teasing out information so that it can come more to your consciousness, as opposed to unconsciousness.
Yeah.
or subconsciousness.
Yeah, and then I don't remember if I had any homework. I don't think I had any homework after mine. And then you had your individual session the next week, right?
And you were deployed at the time.
Yeah, I was traveling for work a lot at that time of the year, and so that was, of course, another stressor for us. So
yeah,
that probably contributed as well. But
because it was like you have been in the military for as long as I've known you, but this new job was different. That you would be deploying every month, right?
Yeah, a lot more.
Yeah, not for long periods of time.
But yeah, just a lot
but
more.
more frequently.
Yeah, a lot more travel.
Yeah, it's like you're home, you're leaving, you're home, you're leaving. That's hard. And that's hard for me because I really love my person, and to have you gone is not fun at all.
Yeah, and then we had your session. Or you had your session.
Yeah, and for me it was like I did have homework. I think at the end of, I don't know if it was the end of the first session when I was given homework, or anyway, regardless, at some point I was asked, hey, you should make a list of, the pros and cons of this new dynamic. And so I really went deep, and it was a really, really long list. And to be honest, mostly it was con. And I think that was also, to be fair, because it was still new. And so I'm going to innately try to go on the more con side because it's already hard. But on some ways it was great. Like I would say, I don't remember the list. I don't have the list anymore. But I would say one thing that was good is that there was increased transparency. My arm's getting tired. I'm going to move it.
That's fair.
So increased transparency, to be let in on the secret was huge. It was kind of fun to be able to talk about clothes and not have rolling eyes, or I don't know, I'm a dude, I don't know, what will look good, or hey, why don't you slut up, because I'm a but more of genuine help with clothes, or opinions, or just talking about that stuff. So there were positives at the start and ongoing, but there were also a lot of cons. In some ways I felt like I lost you. And I was having all of these really tough conversations with my husband, because I wasn't it's kind of like any person you meet that's new, you don't talk about the serious stuff. That's just not what you do. You talk about the serious stuff with the people you've been with for a long time. So I was having all these tough conversations with my husband, which I never needed to have prior to this new dynamic. So it's it was hard to like Amelia and get to know her and respect her, when in some ways she'd taken the very thing that made me very happy, which was my husband. So there was, probably some jealousy, and definitely some, upset feelings, sad, maybe some anger, why do I have to go through this? And but ultimately the list that was long and had more cons did, it regardless, it made me realize that I love you even more, because you are more vulnerable, and that this is, I feel like, I've always felt like anything that's difficult in your life is an opportunity for personal evolution. And so I saw this very difficult challenge as an opportunity to grow. And it might sound corny, and it might sound silly, or however you interpret or perceive that, but for me, I still felt like it was worth it. Even though it was tough, even though it was hard, even though some days I didn't want to do it, and I wasn't ready for the full enchilada of it. I wasn't ready for intimate relations with Amelia. I wasn't ready for a podcast to, air out all of our discussions, all of our, inner marital phenomenons. I wasn't ready. But overall, I felt like the list said, despite it being, I could perceive it easy as like con. Overall, it was beneficial to still be in a relationship and to have this dynamic because it allowed me to grow, and I'm still growing, and I think definitely to allow you to grow as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You mentioned being more like a whole person through therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I will echo that. I would say when we were first dating, anytime that there was an emotional moment, like if I cried over work or something because I was having a hard day, and if you cried with me, you would always say, "Oh, I don't want to be a wuss," or sorry, I'm being a wuss, or something like that. And looking back, kind of noticing how maybe you perceived emotions like crying as female, and you weren't ready to show your female side, so therefore like any crying was bad and unacceptable. So I feel like therapy really helped you not just to cry, but to explore different emotions, and be, as you said, a whole person.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Did we continue with therapy?
So we did 4 sessions, I think. Yeah, we did the initial one. We each did an individual session. I think the last session we did I came as Amelia as opposed to the other ones. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we only did the 4 sessions, and then for anybody that's ever done therapy, it's a little pricey.
Mm-hmm.
And
we didn't go through military.
No, we did not go through the military, so that's why it was so pricey. But we also kind of felt like we got ourselves on track to where we got the tools that we needed, and
or at least initial, so we have like something that we can we have a couple of things that we can work on to build to this point, so we don't want to like bite off so much that we don't get anything. Just get like a couple of tools here and there and try to really build something from that, and then when we're ready, if we feel like there's a stagnation, go back again. Yeah. And also when we have money saved up.
Yeah, we're definitely, it's always there on the back burner as like a thing that we can use again if and when we need it.
And I think at some point we probably will go again, just because we're still learning to what extent you want to be Amelia, like how much will there be transitioning, to an extent will that happen or not happen, and maybe a therapist can help kind of figure out, based on what you're saying, maybe you can try this.
Right. Help us unpack a bit more when we're ready to unpack, if we need the help.
I guess we're almost done.
I guess so.
I will say that I know this is a very difficult subject, both for the cis girlfriends and cis wives, and for the LGBTQ plus person, the person who might be dual gender, cross-dresser, or transgender in the making, or already is working on it. Therapy is so important. It's really, I can't imagine having a grounding sense of you without it.
But it's also like it's not like an easy button where you like push it and they just fix things for you. You do have to put in the work. And they're gonna ask you questions that you don't want to answer necessarily, but those are the questions that you need to answer, and they're asking them to you because you didn't ask them of yourself, or you didn't answer them for yourself honestly, and so that's why you end up where you are. So I would just say, like, go into it with an open mind.
And understand that they're trying to free you fully.
A good therapist isn't going to be judging you, or, you're not going to shock someone
Yeah.
because they've probably seen all manner of other things, and yeah. So just you got to give it a fair chance to give yourself a fair chance.
Yeah. Truly, truly.
Yeah.
We have some wonderful people in our world. Some who have sought out therapy, some who haven't, some who are not sure, some who are adamantly just like not happening, not going to do it. Nothing's wrong with me. And you're right, nothing's wrong with you. It's just there's some things that are not being expressed, and a therapist is going to help you. So I can imagine that there are people right now watching this part of the video being like, well, easier said than done. They can do it. They have a spouse who helped them. And if you don't have a spouse or a girlfriend who's, saying you need to go to therapy or we need to go to therapy, like you still can. And you really must. You owe it to yourself. I mean, whether there are past lives or future lives of ours, we don't know for a fact, definitively. What we do know is that we have this one life, and it's going to go by real quick. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to go through my life with regrets. I don't want to be on my deathbed, and I know how dark this is right now, but I don't want to go on my deathbed having regrets.
Yep.
I don't want to be like, I'm about to die, and I wish I could have done this, that, and the other. I wish I could have told the person who I really am. It's a lot scarier than it needs to be because you're letting it fester.
Yep.
Sorry, my contacts are really bothering me. But please go to therapy.
Yes. Yep, there's no shame in it. It's just a tool, just like anything else. But I think that's going to do it for us as Heather removes her eyeball.
My contact.
Yes. Not her eyeball, just her contact.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for this. Thank you for tuning in. As always, drop some comments down below, messages on Instagram at the page that I will show in the video.
And we are happy to help. We're happy to be there for you and with you. We are not licensed. We are not professional. But also, there is some freedom in that because we are not beholden to the medical or psychology laws of like not telling you what to do. We can advise.
Yep, we can give advice.
And it may not be, we can give you bad advice, but we'll give you our best advice. But there is no substitute for therapy.
Yep.
But it can be additive. It can be in addition to us helping you.
Yes.